Welcome to The Debate. So, imagine you're a startup founder, right? You are bleeding, say, $3,000 a month on enterprise Salesforce seats.
Yeah, for a team of what, maybe 8 people?
Exactly. For 8 people. And nobody even uses the software properly because, well, it requires a dedicated administrator just to add a custom field.
Or, you are on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right. Running your entire operation on a single Google Sheet that is it is holding on for dear life.
Oh yeah, it literally crashes every single time 2 sales reps try to update a cell at the exact same time. We see it all the time.
We do, and that is why we are looking at this recent analytical breakdown making the rounds in the operations space. It claims a new middle ground has finally emerged, which is custom CRMs built entirely with Zapier tables and interfaces.
Yes. And the core tension we are analyzing today is whether this native no-code automation stack can genuinely replace those massive enterprise systems or, if it is just another dangerous operational bottleneck.
A bottleneck disguised by clever, low-cost marketing hype.
Exactly.
I will lay my cards on the table right at the outset here. I am coming at this as a skeptic. While these native no-code tools look incredibly appealing on a pricing page, when you actually dig into the architecture, they suffer. They suffer from strict data caps, glaring security vulnerabilities, and frankly, a severe lack of business intelligence reporting.
Okay, but
in my view, relying on this for a scaling business is fundamentally unsafe.
Well, I look at the operational reality of modern small businesses, and I see a landscape where companies are just hemorrhaging capital. They are burning cash for enterprise features they simply do not need. Or, like we said, relying on fragile infrastructure that breaks under the slightest pressure.
Sure, the Google Sheets scenario.
Right. So for specific targeted teams, I argue this native relational architecture inside Zapier is an absolute game changer. It eliminates bloated software fees, completely neutralizes API latency, and delivers a perfectly tailored, highly efficient engineering solution.
But can it actually scale?
We are not talking about replacing Salesforce for a Fortune 500 company with 10,000 employees here. We are talking about providing actual, functional, zero-latency infrastructure for the other 99% of the economy.
All right, well, let us test that premise. Let us look directly at the architectural integrity of this system. Because the analysis makes a very bold claim about why moving a database natively into Zapier is supposedly this revolutionary leap.
Because it is.
But for years, people have just connected web forms to external spreadsheets. I want to understand the exact mechanics here. Why is moving from an external Airtable or a Google Sheet to Zapier tables being framed as such a massive operational upgrade?
It really comes down to how data historically moved through the internet, specifically the problem of latency and single points of failure.
Okay, break that down.
Think about how automation used to work. Zapier was essentially a highly efficient digital courier. So a web form on your site captured a lead. Zapier picked up that data payload, fired it across the web via an API call to, say, an external Google Sheet, and then it waited.
Right, it had to wait for the handshake.
Exactly. It had to authenticate over HTTP, wait for Google servers to respond and confirm receipt, and then trigger a secondary workflow to send a welcome email. All of that external crosstalk introduces latency.
Milliseconds of latency, usually, but yes.
But more importantly, it creates fragility. If the Google API times out for 3 seconds, or if Airtable is doing routine maintenance on a Tuesday night, your entire automation sequence breaks.
Yes, the dreaded broken Zap.
Right. So by moving the database natively into Zapier tables, the data processing occurs instantaneously in the exact same environment. The digital courier is no longer traveling across the open internet navigating traffic. They are just walking a piece of paper across the same room.
The memory allocation and data execution happen within a single ecosystem. I get that.
Exactly.
Look, I understand the mechanical advantage of localized data. Bypassing external API calls certainly reduces the risk of third-party server timeouts. But local storage is only half of the equation here.
How so?
Because a professional CRM requires a relational structure, not just a place to dump text. If this is just another flat file living on a different server, it does not actually solve the core problem of data corruption.
Ah, but it is not a flat file. and that is a crucial distinction from the text. What is being built here is a true relational database, operating on the exact same fundamental architecture that a $100,000 corporate system uses.
A relational structure inside Zapier?
Yes. Let's look at why a Google Sheet breaks. A flat file forces you to stuff everything: the client's name, their company, their 50 email exchanges, their billing status, into one overwhelming horizontal row. It is chaos.
Yeah, it becomes unreadable very quickly.
Zapier Tables utilizes interconnected architecture. So you build a master leads table that only tracks core entities, right? Name, email, overall deal value. Then you build a completely separate interactions table that tracks the granular day-to-day activity like call notes and sent emails.
Using foreign keys.
Yes, what Zapier calls linked records. A single customer profile in your leads table links directly to multiple unique records in the interactions table. You eliminate data duplication entirely. It is a highly sophisticated, structurally sound backend.
Sophisticated structurally, perhaps, but we have to talk about capacity.
Okay.
Because a beautiful structure is utterly useless if it cannot handle the weight of a real business. Let me offer a perspective on this.
Go ahead.
This setup is like bragging about designing a stunning, highly customized corporate headquarters only to realize you have built it inside a rented sandbox and there is a strict legal limit on how many bricks you can use.
A rented sandbox? That is a bit dramatic.
It is the truth. The absolute first limitation we have to acknowledge from the text is that Zapier Tables is not a high-volume data warehouse. Standard plans impose very strict row limits per table.
Well, sure, there are limits.
Hard limits. If you are running a high-frequency e-commerce operation or, if you are running consumer marketing campaigns where you are processing tens of thousands of net new leads every 30 days, you are going to exhaust those capacities at a terrifying speed.
Yeah, but
you simply cannot scale customer acquisition if your core infrastructure puts a hard ceiling on data storage.
look, I will gladly concede that point. If an e-commerce brand is doing 50,000 transactions a month, they will absolutely break this system. A high-velocity transactional business requires a heavy-duty data warehouse, but we have to contextualize the deployment here.
Contextualize it how?
Look at a consulting firm or a specialized digital marketing agency or a boutique real estate brokerage. They are not processing tens of thousands of net new leads every single month. They are managing high-value, lower-volume pipelines.
Okay, fair.
For a B2B service business closing, say, 20 deals a month, a 100,000 row limit is a runway that will literally last them a decade. The architectural integrity is not an illusion. It is just purpose-built for a specific data velocity.
That is a fair distinction regarding B2B versus B2C data velocity. I will give you that. But an architecture is not just about how much data you can safely hold. It is about how the human beings on your team actually interact with that data.
Right. The UI.
A robust backend database is completely worthless if a sales floor cannot easily navigate it. Or worse, if they accidentally corrupt the records because the interface is confusing.
Which brings us perfectly to the front-end engineering. Because raw databases, even relational ones, are inherently clunky for a sales representative to look at.
They beg for human error.
They do. And that is why this system later Zapier interfaces directly on top of the table's data. It acts as a visual web application. The raw backend data transforms into an interactive Kanban board.
So it looks like Trello or Pipedrive?
Exactly. Rather than scanning through endless rows of text to figure out who to call, a sales rep looks at a visual board, clicks a deal card, and physically drags it from a contacted column into a closed won column.
And it syncs back.
Right, because the front end is natively tethered to the back end. Those columns are mapped directly to the database's status field. Dragging the card updates the database instantly without the user ever touching a spreadsheet cell.
So it creates a visual abstraction layer that essentially protects the underlying database from clumsy hands.
Exactly that. And that abstraction extends to the client side, too. You can embed an insert new record form directly on your company's website. A prospect fills out their information, and without paying for a third-party form builder—
No type form fees.
Right. And without needing a complex integration tool to connect the form to the database, that data instantly populates the back-end table and simultaneously drops a brand new formatted card right onto the sales team's Kanban board. The workflow efficiency is incredibly tight.
Okay. I will grant you that it is mechanically very neat. Providing a visual interface that syncs flawlessly with a relational database without external integrations is a legitimate win.
Thank you.
But I am going to challenge this excitement over a pretty drag-and-drop UI, because we have to talk about granular security. This is a brutal limitation in the current no-code ecosystem.
You are referring to the field-level permissions?
I am referring to the reality of running a professional organization. Enterprise platforms allow system administrators to segment accounts by geographical territory or, crucially, to restrict visibility at the field level.
Okay.
Think of a database table like a room with 10 display cases. Page-level access means a user can either enter the room and see all 10 cases, or they are locked out entirely. Field-level security means they can enter the room, but cases 8 and 9, which hold sensitive data, are blacked out depending on their specific ID badge.
Right.
Zapier Interfaces offers baseline page access controls, but it currently lacks granular field-level security parameters. I need you to explain to me how a business can safely operate if it cannot hide sensitive deal values, proprietary client financial data, or commission structures from a junior sales development rep who was hired 3 days ago.
Well,
If everyone who has access to the page can see every data point on the client card, that is not a functional CRM. That is a massive human resources and compliance disaster waiting to happen.
I just disagree that this is a universal disqualifier. You are taking a strict enterprise compliance framework, and you are aggressively applying it to a micro-business reality.
Privacy is not just for enterprises.
Yes, but if you have a 50-person sales floor with cutthroat commission structures, regional territories, and strict data privacy mandates, yes, you absolutely need role-based access control. You need Salesforce's complex permission trees.
Agreed.
But if you are a 7-person agency where everyone basically sits in the same virtual Slack huddle all day, collaboration is prioritized over compartmentalization. In those environments, field-level security is often an administrative nightmare.
Really? A nightmare?
Absolutely. If an agency owner listening to this has a tight-knit team of 6, they do not want to spend their Friday afternoon configuring role-based access hierarchies just so an account manager can view a project scope. The baseline page access control, simply determining whether an employee has a login to view the interface or not, is entirely sufficient and, frankly, preferable for the vast majority of lean teams.
Dismissing data privacy as an administrative nightmare is a very dangerous game to play, even for a 7-person team. I mean, startups fail all the time because internal data gets exposed.
Sure, but
If you accidentally broadcast your entire revenue pipeline or a client's private budgetary constraints to an intern simply because the software physically cannot prevent it, that is a structural failure of the tool.
I think you're overstating the risk for a micro team.
Let us move past the security debate then. Let us look at where this system supposedly justifies its existence, the automation execution. The analysis highlights native action buttons as the crown jewel of this specific architecture.
Oh, they are the crown jewel because they transform a passive database into an active operational engine.
Okay.
Think about how we traditionally trigger automations from a CRM. We have to set up webhooks or status change listeners. The external automation tool essentially has to constantly pull the CRM, shouting, "Did anything change? Did anything change?" every 5 minutes.
It is inefficient, yes.
It consumes massive server resources, and it is inherently fragile. With Zapier tables and interfaces, you insert functional, event-driven execution buttons directly into the database rows or the UI cards. You push the button, and the event fires instantly.
Break down the mechanics of the send proposal workflow from the source text. How does this fundamentally bypass the need for enterprise-grade workflow builders?
It is brilliant because of its simplicity and native integration. So you add a custom button to your CRM interface, labeled Send Proposal. A sales representative is looking at a prospect's card on their Kanban board. They click that button one time.
Okay.
That single click triggers a native background process that instantly extracts the lead's name, their company email, and the highly specific deal value you just negotiated. It pushes that exact data payload into a document generator, like PandaDoc, to dynamically assemble a customized legal agreement.
Bypassing manual entry.
Yes. And then it attaches that finalized agreement to a drafted email, sends it to the client, and finally broadcasts a real-time notification into the company's internal Slack channel saying, "Proposal sent to client X for $5,000.
And all of that executes purely from the interface click.
Purely from the click. The representative never leaves the CRM window. They never have to draft a manual email. They never have to copy and paste client names into a template document.
Which is historically where 90% of embarrassing, deal-killing sales errors occur.
Exactly. They just drag the card to the right column, click a single button, and move on to their next phone call. It puts the entire operational habit of the sales team on absolute autopilot.
I will concede that the one-click execution is mechanically impressive. The elimination of context switching, where a rep has to open 4 different tabs just to send a contract, that is a legitimate, measurable efficiency gain.
It is massive for productivity.
But that brings me directly to the third and perhaps most fatal limitation. What happens when the CEO or the managing partner asks for a quarterly performance report?
Well, you can easily export the data or build a dashboard.
But exporting data to a spreadsheet is exactly the chaotic behavior we were trying to avoid by building a native CRM in the first place. A localized database is not a business intelligence engine.
Not out of the box, no.
If executive leadership requires complex multi-touch attribution modeling, this system completely falls apart. Let me break down what that means for listeners who might not be deep in data science. Say a customer listens to an audio ad in January, downloads a white paper in March, attends a webinar in May, and finally signs a contract in July.
A long sales cycle.
Right. To track that, your database needs to string together wildly different historical data points over a long time horizon to tell you exactly where your marketing dollars are actually working. Zapier tables cannot execute the complex SQL joins required for that kind of analysis.
Well, sure, it is not built for complex SQL joins.
It cannot do linear forecasting to predict Q4 revenue based on historical deal velocity either, because it does not take historical snapshots of the data. It only knows what the data looks like right now.
Yes.
So by building in this environment, you are effectively trading executive visibility for frontline speed. And inevitably, you will be forced into a highly painful, expensive data migration down the line when the business matures and needs to actually understand its own history.
I just framed that trade-off very differently.
How so?
You are not sacrificing executive visibility. You are simply acknowledging the phase of growth the business is currently in. If a company is at the stage where they genuinely require multi-touch attribution modeling and complex SQL joins for linear forecasting, they have already outgrown the parameters of a no-code stack.
That is my point.
But let us be honest about the businesses we are actually discussing today. Most small agencies and solopreneurs do not need multi-touch attribution. They just need to know how many deals they closed this month, what the total pipeline value is, and which clients have not been contacted in 2 weeks.
Basic pipeline visibility.
Exactly. A localized relational database handles those real-time queries flawlessly. When the day comes that you genuinely need deep historical business intelligence, yes, you migrate to Salesforce or HubSpot. But you fund that migration using the hundreds of thousands of dollars you saved by not paying for an enterprise CRM during your critical, fragile, early growth years.
So the ultimate defense is that this is a highly effective stepping stone rather than a permanent operational foundation for a scaling enterprise.
I would say it is a permanent foundation for a specific class of microbusiness and a highly strategic cost-saving stepping stone for those on an aggressive growth trajectory.
Well, let us move toward our conclusion and synthesize what we have uncovered here today. We have stress-tested this architecture pretty thoroughly.
We definitely have.
My summary remains rooted in the explicit structural limitations we discussed. While this native no-code setup is undeniably a clever operational maneuver, particularly in how it completely neutralizes API latency through localized data processing, its rigid row caps,
The severe lack of field-level security permissions and the total deficit in business intelligence reporting make it too risky for anything beyond basic, low-volume pipeline tracking.
I hear that.
If you are building a company that is engineered to scale rapidly, starting on a platform that actively restricts your reporting capabilities and caps your data volume is going to cause a massive operational bottleneck.
And my summary is that for the vast majority of lean, modern teams, this native relational stack permanently solves the problem of bloated, predatory user fees and chaotic, fragile spreadsheets.
It definitely solves the fee problem.
By combining the back end of tables with the front end of interfaces and linking them with those native action buttons, you are delivering an immediate, zero-latency return on investment. You are giving your sales floor one-click automations for a fraction of the cost of a traditional system. The engineering efficiency here is not marketing hype. It is a very real, highly functional alternative to the enterprise monopoly.
Regardless of our stance on the specific software, I think we both clearly converge on one fundamental truth from the text.
Which is?
Running any modern business on a standalone flat file spreadsheet is a recipe for absolute disaster.
Oh, 100%.
Adopting a relational database structure, where your core leads are properly linked to their granular interactions via foreign keys to prevent data corruption, that is strictly non-negotiable for scale. Whether you are building that architecture inside Zapier or paying a premium for Salesforce, the relational methodology is mandatory.
Absolutely. The underlying architecture matters infinitely more than the logo on the software you buy.
Which brings us to the final verdict. We can draw a very specific threshold based on the mechanics we've debated today.
The 15-person mark.
Exactly. If a business manages hundreds of thousands of dynamic records, if it requires multi-departmental permission hierarchies to satisfy strict enterprise compliance, or if it simply has a sales floor larger than 15 representatives, they must avoid this no-code build and invest the capital in a traditional enterprise CRM.
On the flip side, if you are a digital agency, a specialized consultant, or a solopreneur operating with fewer than 15 team members, building this tailored system is a legitimate, viable strategy. It allows you to put your operations on autopilot without draining your cash reserves.
It leaves the listener with a vital choice regarding their own operations, and frankly, a profound way to look at software. A CRM should not dictate how your business runs. It should be an organizational mirror.
That is a great way to put it.
If your company is hierarchical, strictly siloed, and highly complex, you must buy a system built for that reality. But if your team is flat, collaborative, and moving fast, your database should reflect that agility. You have to look critically at your own company and decide which side of that 15-person threshold you truly belong on. Are you going to keep duct taping that fragile spreadsheet together, or are you going to build the exact vehicle your business actually requires?